namaste everybody, and thank you for this opportunity. Now, what we are presenting here is what Secretary Sir and Shukla ji said about the challenges that we have faced in dating. See, one thing we must remember is we have no problem with the dates. The whole of India uniformly has only one day on which it celebrates Janmashtami. There is no two doubts about this. None of us have any doubts. And we wouldn't have a doubt on its historicity. If we are celebrating Janmashtami, that disproves the fact that we doubt its historicity. You won't celebrate a birthday of somebody who is, he says Superman Batman. So there is no doubt. All this issue about dating comes about only when we are talking about mapping to a Gregorian calendar. The English calendar, as we call it, is the Gregorian calendar, and that is where we are having all these challenges. And Secretary Sir said, we are now having to meet the Western standards of proving things and scientifically establishing facts. But just a small point, we can talk about it in detail. The West itself, though it claims it is historical, and though it talks about Jesus Christ and all that, the date of Jesus Christ itself is in a cloud. Because it says actually he was born during the times of Herod, which was -4 BCE. And so therefore Christ was actually born before he was born. Okay, so like we ended. Do we really have to use Western standards as the yardstick for establishing our history? Is a big question that we will have to ask ourselves at the end of all our deliberations. But given that, this is just one more step. We've had, as we present, India, the government of India has recognized 7,500 calendars, 7,300 calendars, which Dr. Meghnad Saha has painstakingly listed. Like if Bohri has done the critical edition, Dr. Meghnad Saha, the astrophysicist, has taken the pains to compile the number of calendars. Shuklaji spoke about 500 panchangs. So there are so many, and actually more than that. So he has taken the pains to collate all of them. He meaning they had a big team. It was a big project that was initiated like what you're trying to do now. And they had come up with a calendar reform committee because should January 1 be the new year or April 1 or what should be India's new year was the problem then. And that is why they had come up with that, and we came up with how we should go with March the 21st.
This was the Calendar Reforms Committee. It was passed by the Parliament, and the preface was signed by the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru.
On 23rd March at Ujjain,
Yes,
we are having a 2-day conference on the CSIR on the recommendation of NASA and how we can fit that into.
this 23rd. So there is really, we have had our calendars, and we've had so many calendars, and the beauty, like we said, is all of them accept 3102 BCE as the date for Kali Yuga. And we all know.
Can you believe it? 7,300 calendars accept one date for Kali Yuga. So when that's the beauty of our purchases, because when somebody takes a day, 2,000 years prior to this, the point is they are negating 7,200 calendar systems, they are negating 7,200 paramparas, and they are negating 7,200 of their great grandfathers and gurujis and acharyas who have kept the system for 5,000 years. So that is a big thing, because reading one shloka is one thing, negating 7,300 paramparas and gurus and matas and acharyas and people who propound it with the other perspective, they are negating their grandfathers and great grandfathers.
So then it puts our culture in question then. So that is one big point. So therefore it becomes, and since we know Krishna and Mahabharata are very deeply connected with the Kali Yuga event, pegging Kali Yuga therefore becomes very important. Otherwise, if we just take it random and start looking for dates, then the whole sky is there. sky is the limit, literally. You can go anywhere and start finding dates and corroborations everywhere. So Kali Yuga, somewhere you have to anchor. The way we have to anchor Krishna down and historically to give an anchor for our belief and the religion and the culture, we have to anchor Kali Yuga first to start looking for the dates. And therefore, that is the first step. After that, you can start reading the shloka of the Mahabharata, the other ancillary texts, and so on, to look for, narrow down your search. So something within that time window is what you will narrow it down to, and then you can start exploring, and that is the second step. Then you start looking for other tighter parameters. So it could be from the Mahabharata text itself, it could be some Purana, it could be folklore, it could be our tradition that we have been following. You can't disregard anything. Very rightly he said, if you in the critical edition, if you have not taken certain shloka, we have to still use it for validating certain other things. The critical edition says this is the common core. And the beauty of that is that if it is a common core, that means it is common across all of them, all the different texts from which it has been compiled. So it has to be used as is. You cannot after that cast aspersion and say that this shloka is not fitting here or there. So maybe there is a grammatical mistake here or there is a typo here. Therefore, I will change it. So instead of this many number of days, I will assume it like that. It could have been this. So those kind of things we cannot take that liberty.
We should allow you to change the verses itself. That's happening with this one.
So that is yet another thing. So every aspect of tradition has to be taken to confirm these dates, and all the stringent criteria you fit in, because there are some very tight conditions. The three eclipses that is much talked about. Then there is also a beautiful condition. I think a very simple, very obvious thing which we have all perhaps ignored. I'll just come to that in the next point. And then comes the important question. Because like we see, we find that there is a date that is emerging as 3067, and that is different from Kali Yuga. But we've all believed so far that Kali Yuga started because Krishna left this earth. So that is why Kali Yuga set in and it started then. So if that is so, then how do you examine and ratify this? So that is something again we have to see and understand it. So and from that comes to Krishna's birth as well, because that is again tied up with the 125 years and so on. See, if you look at this, the challenge, once you take the Kali Yuga date, there are three major things amongst all our friends here that perhaps we may have to sit, like Shuklaji said. One more thing, Shuklaji, you made a very nice remark. You said so many conferences have been held, but unfortunately we have not converged. That's because we have not had somebody as scholarly in Jyotisha as like you, being there to kind of bring us all into that one single focal point. So we are very glad that you have taken that initiative.
The anchor is important. You see the word anchoring, Lanka is important. Lanka is not the Sri Lanka that is there. Yeah. That's the geographical place. But anchoring Lanka is very important. Lanka is called Lanka because it anchors close to the equator along with Ujjain. That's why it's called the name Lanka. So we take this from a reference in Ramayana. So any work we do,
one anchor is definitely needed. And thank you, Shuklaji, for being there.
Taking Kali Yuga here as anchor.
So, see, the problem is about start of war, Amavasya, or can it be some other day? So that is one big thing which can cause differences in the actual dates being arrived at 3067 or 3100 range and so on. So that is a place that we may all have to sit and re-examine and conclude conclusively. The other thing is whatever dates that come by, then Bhishma's statement that for 58 nights for 58 sleepless nights he has had. So that is yet another thing that we will have to ratify.
It is not 58 nights of sleeping on a bed of arrow that alone. It's 58 sleepless nights. So somebody is saying that just 58 nights only on the bed of arrow. So the 10 plus 48 to 58. That will say as we go along.
Then the other point of contention, did Kali Yuga and Krishna, so did Kali Yuga exactly, so the actual date 3102, is it exactly the day that Krishna departed, or is it another day? So these are fundamentally the three points. And so pegging Kali Yuga, we can actually look at it from various perspectives. So there are astronomers who have written in text. We have Aryabhatta, his text, and followed by Brahmagupta, Bhattotpala. All of them have very detailed. They have mentioned this. Then we have the inscriptions, the Meguti Jain temple inscription itself. They both give the same Kali Yuga date, but from a different perspective.
And also Madhvacharya, from Shri Madhvacharya, other date about all. We come to that show. Well, this is a simplified animation just for easy understanding. But we show more details. It's not as simple as that, but we just show. See, the earth is on the other side. So we have an hour to this. Okay. So that is how this is. So when you see Dwapara Kali Yuga, that is the point of Kali Yuga. This year. And it's a Antare is the key word here. And it's a Sandhi. In all languages, Sandhi is Sandhi. So it's an area of me. So the Kurukshetra word happens here. And Sandhi is not just the background state piece because it's actually Sandhi, you should remember, when it's 200 years on the side of Dwapara, 100 years on the side of Kali Yuga. Because Dwapara is twice Kali. So Sandhi is not just 1 year to it, it's a 300-year window is what we should understand. There it is. Those 200 years that way this way. You always come back many times to this slide and it's all a bit. And see, Krishna himself says in Hari Vamsha clearly there.
So even during the time of Krishna, there are many references. This is just one. He already says Kali Yuga is here already. And so therefore to say that Kali started after Krishna left, again, would be something that we have to examine.
And not to back it now or later since you're there.
Okay.
Because not only later, but because both of you mentioned the European astronomers. See, the backdating, 3 people have spoken about it. Of course, Bailey is what you mentioned, sir. Look at this. About back calculation, he says it's not possible. Why it's not possible is explained by John Playfair, the Scottish astronomer, in 1790, if you remember right. This we got from the Edinburgh Museum, we got this data very famous. So, I'm talking about pre-Google days, we got this. Look at this. He says, look at the spelling English of Kali Yuga, Calyogam, Kali Yuga, he calls it. So look at spelling is going to and he says it's not possible. This is the original text. Look at the spelling observation OBF. He says that they knew about gravitation 3000 BC and he writes this. And because of ephemeris table, it's a manual written ephemeris table, and the man who's credited of the ephemeris table of 1800s, late 1800s is Louis Dominic Sami Kannapillai.
Diwan Bahadur, Louis Dominic, but they usually don't use that. They just say LD Sami Kannapillai.
So he was the one who wrote it in Chennai, and had the good fortune of literally thumbing through those and going to details. So Louis, so if we say, because today we speak about in astronomy, subject being and using the charts, NASA and all those stuff, but he did it by hand. A 40-50 year effort. And it's authentic to nobody has found fault with this ephemeris after 100 years or so. By hand, manually did it, which is what Dr. Raghavan used later, 50 years later. And look at this one, just telling you. This is the conjunctions took place at this hour, all this written 100 years ago. This is all there in our book, historical. And Bailey. So it is, they say it's not possible to backdate, or 9 counts. And what are they quoting? They are quoting the Tiruvallur calendar. So they don't use a Tiruvallur, they call it Tiruvallur calendar. This is my great grandfather's time, not grandfather, great grandfather's time.
So from this actually, I'm just moving very fast because all details are there in the book, and maybe when we get down to further discussions, we can go into the detail. Given just a half an hour just giving you a gist of some of these points. So when you look at the 3067 date for war, this is the kind of internally consistent dates you get for the events that have been mentioned in the Mahabharata. Some of the key events where we can pick up, and a lot of this actually has the credit for this goes for pinning it down to this detail goes to Professor Narahari Achar. And the interesting thing was when he had come to Bangalore around 2000 for explaining this in India for the first time, we literally hijacked him, brought him home. He stayed with us for a couple of days. And
can I say here, Dr. Kalyan Raman told me Dr. Narahari Achar, because it was Dr. S. Kalyan Raman who induced Narahari Achar to take up to do this research of Memphis University. And he came to Bangalore to meet his sister and for a family function, and also give a conference at a Kalyana Mandapa in Bengaluru for a forenoon session. I went from Chennai to Bengaluru, literally hijacked him in the Kalyana Mandapa after lunch, put him in my car and took him to Chennai, 300 kilometers, and kept for 2 days, discussed for 2 full days all this data, documented it, and then sent it back to Bengaluru. You can talk about hijacking in a film. That's what I did actually to that man. Because the enthusiasm that we had 20 years back.
So the problem actually arises, why about this Amavasya? It all starts with this Krishna Karna chariot ride, where they say that in 7 days there is going to be Amavasya, and that Amavasya actually is the middle one in the sequence of triple eclipses, and it's going to be in Jeshta. So it's all indicated. Let's start war. Let's get ready for war. So that fundamental thing has set the mood that the war has started on Amavasya. But 2 things, if we hold that, then a couple of things. A war in Indian tradition, we would never do anything on an eclipse day. And if we have done so also, when Mahabharata is writing so much about things, they would have all the Anushthan for an eclipse, everything, they would have mentioned those kind of facts here and there. None of that is ever mentioned again. The other thing is, see, this is the main thing. So, okay, we all know Gita Jayanti, Margashira Shukla Paksha Ekadashi. Of course, then people also argue to justify the Amavasya. They say that no, it was because Sanjaya, it was told to reveal to Sanjaya. So the day it was revealed to Sanjaya is the Gita Jayanti. And that we cannot see when we say a Jayanti. Actually, the word Jayanti itself comes because of Krishna. I've spoken to some nice scholars who have given this thing. The word Jayanti means actually an astronomical position based on Rohini. See, even Vijay Dashami, the word Vijaya. So the Jayanti, they all denote an astronomical configuration. And because that happened for Krishna, and it is associated with the birth, all births started becoming Jayanti. And also because Jayanti also comes from the word Jaya, from Jananam, Ja. So from there, it also becomes the Jayanti, becomes a celebration for birth.
So Jayanti is a unique astronomical configuration. Like how Vijaya is a unique astronomical configuration. Vijaya Dashami means it's an astronomical configuration. It's not about victory alone. Primarily, then we add it to victory, like that Jayanti. Now we add Jayanti to Gandhi Jayanti, to Ambedkar Jayanti, everybody's Jayanti, we add the person Jayanti. So the term has taken form, but Jayanti is primarily about an astronomical configuration that we bring out here.
And we can give you what is the configuration. So that is another thing. So day 14 of war is very, very important, because they say that on the day 14, the war went on till late midnight. We all know that particular story. And they mentioned that the moon rose at midnight. So the moon rise is at midnight, and that is happening on day 14. Then you look at it backward. That means day 1 of the war should have been very close to a full moon. And if it is close to a full moon, but that is not, then you can't have day 14 as moon rising in the midnight. Right? If day 1 was an Amavasya, then day 14 would have been a Purnima, then the moon would have risen in the evening and not midnight. This is just a very basic, we don't need any sky chart, no astronomical anything, just our normal logic.
So it has to actually know me.
So it has to be an 8th or 9th phase. And if that is an 8th or 9th phase, then the start goes to Ekadashi beautifully. And it fits with our tradition of calling it Gita Jayanti, Margashira Shukla Paksha Ekadashi. So they both tally beautifully. So So while 3067 may seem very jarring, because it is not fitting with our 3102, it fits a whole lot of other aspects which are scientifically, physically, and traditionally in that sense correct. And
3102 is the day of his death.
3102 is the day of Kali Yuga.
It is the day when he died.
No, that is the day he died is not 3102, 3031, because if 3067 is the day of war, then 36 years later is when he dies, and that fits in with Gandhari's curse. And just two days ago, Kalyan Ramanji was talking to me about this the 36 years. See, all eclipses, the pattern of eclipses we all know comes because of the Saros cycle. Now he's saying, look at the beauty in this. 3067, all the triple eclipses have happened. So Saros cycle, they know about eclipses. So Saros cycle means you should have said 18 years, hence your kul will get destroyed. But look at that lady, she's saying 36 years later. And why so? Because even in Saros cycle, for the earth, for the sun, from a sun's perspective and earth's perspective, 18 years, the cycle repeats. But for an observer standing in this place, 18 years in Eastern Hemisphere, 18 years in Western Hemisphere. So for the cycle to come back to my hemisphere where I'm standing, it will be 36 years. So there is such a beauty. I'm kidding.
So Gandhari is an astronomer herself. She knows Jyotish, she knows astronomy. That's why she's
whether she's an astronomer or it's even common knowledge. For people, that like he was quoting so many, Raja Jayega and the army or the king will go. She is aware that 36 years later it will repeat where she is standing, where Krishna and she are standing, and also that this is linked with the death, of the kul or vansh. So if this Kuru vansh is going, then Krishna's Yadu vansh will also go.
So she's saying the way my vansh will, your vansh will move.
How do you peg it at 22nd November 2067?
Yes.
What is the basis on which you reach that figure?
Yes, we'll come down to this.
So this is the sequence of that eclipse, and there is another point here. I think we all should understand this 13-day eclipse, the shortened time span, paksha, the shortened paksha of 13 days. We immediately look at it and we get alarmed and we say that, oh my God, that means something catastrophic has happened, which is why this thing suddenly, very unusually, it has come to 13 days. So something bad, we start looking for those kind of things. This is yet another beautiful thing about the Indian system, where we were talking about the Kshay. So it is nothing but a difference in calculation. Physically and scientifically, the Paksh was not short. Paksh was the same. It is your calculation, you are calling it 13 tithis. So the Paksh is still 14. So if you actually measure with clock and time, elapsed time, it would have been the same. But because in our system, the day on which the moon rise is after sunrise, we drop that tithi. That tithi has got dropped and it has just become 13 tithis and counting. So it is not a physically challenging, rare, unusual, catastrophic phenomenon.
So, but did this happen only on that date, or does it happen once in every while? And
see, triple eclipses, we
have
written.
Yes. It's a matter of faith. 3067, or is there any evidence?
There is a lot of action. I have to walk you through the whole.
Sure.
See, these are the dates for each of those eclipses that you get in that sequence. And triple eclipses, we've written a separate book to show that how triple eclipses are common. And in certain decades, we have had every alternate year, which is a triple eclipse. So triple eclipse as such is not, and during World War I and World War II, they were fairly common because they were in the decades where multiple eclipses were happening. So this is not just a one-off occurrence. This happens very frequently. It is just that it is a very good marker in the Mahabharata for us to place it.
This gives a very stringent astronomical conditions of where it occurs. it has to be in Jeshta, and either side has to be lunar eclipse. And each of them. So that is what fixes it actually, the war sequence. Helps. And going, see, it can't be seen. It can't be seen in isolation. It has.
Explain that, please. What is the war sequence that we're talking about?
See, this is before the war. So here it's a lunar eclipse. And as she said, the Shaya is here and the second one of 13 days. It's a 14 days there. So one is in Kartik Purnima, Amavasya Jeshta, and then Kartik Purnima. So that's what fixes it before the war. And this is read in correlation with the Balrama's trek.
See, these are, okay, to explain, see, these are, forget the birth and the Yadava Civil War.
Because there's no birth mentioned in Mahabharata. It comes from Hariyamsa. There's no mention of Krishna's birth in Mahabharata. Once Krishna enters Mahabharata for the first time, only in Draupadi Swayamvara. That's where he meets his cousins. He doesn't meet them before that at all. So Mahabharata is about the other family. So Krishna enters, that's where his entry point itself is.
So just to give in brief how this thing dates are coming. See, what you do is these are shlokas where you find those astronomical mention. They may not be important days as far as Mahabharata, some of them may not be. But here is where you find some very unambiguous, I mean, not so ambiguous, more clear mentions. Now, what you do is once you start saying that 3102, that time window it is, then you start looking at various occurrences of these kind of astronomical events. And initially, if you just say Krishna's departure from Hastinapura, you may find some 10 days. For Krishna Duta, you may find some 5 days. Now, these 10 and this 5, you will find the commonality. So then you start zeroing and filtering out and narrowing it. And that is when you come to a common set where ultimately you will get a series of dates where they tally with the shloka and they'll also tally with the elapsed period between the two events. So that then tells, oh yes, this is the date, because not only is it just a random mapping of the shloka in the sky, but it is a mapping of the entire sequence of events.
What is not clear to me is that either you take matter as an article of faith, that we are beginning with 3067 as or 3102 or whatever as a given, and then see whether the dates in between are corresponding. Or if we say that 3067 itself we will establish to be the only date on which all of these various things could have happened. I'm not very sure which approach you are following.
We are following 3102 Kali Yuga to be the given thing.
So what was the point of Kali Yuga? You're saying that Krishna did not die on that.
So
And what is 3102?
So 3102 is an astronomical event that
What is
occurs.
that astronomical?
Can you go to the
Yeah,
rest
where
of-
is the filter?
filter is in Krishna. No. Come to filter in the first photo. In calendar. Go to 3102. See, the point I would like to express is slightly different. See, so 3102 is a given for 7,300 Panchangas and calendar systems speak about it as common date 1. And the event of 3102 is not Kurukshetra city or to Hastinapura or to Indraprastha. Wherever we are in Bharata, it's 3102. Forget the calendar, viewing. Even if you're in Mexico or Japan or Australia, it is still Kali Yuga. But whichever language you speak, can teach Spanish because the earth is there, that's all. And it's not only that.
This is Kali Yuga started at 2 hours.
Now, what I'm trying to say is, because here in this conference, we are holding ourselves to pretty stringent benchmarks.
Yes.
That should be understood. So when you are saying that this is the start of Kali Yuga, the first question is that what is the physical event which corresponds to Kali Yuga? Is it the death of Lord Krishna, or is it some other point, or is it just an imaginary line that we draw? That yes, this is Kali Yuga. Right? So that is the first question. And let's answer each question in very specific terms. Second is that what is the conjunction of, let's say, stars or whatever, which brings us to this date of 3102. Now you've shown everything is one line. Is that the conjunction when all the planets and the sun were in one line? Because then Swami Kumar Chaudhary can try to tell me whether this actually happened on 3102 or does it happen every 5 years? Does it happen every 5,000 years? You know, what is, I mean, if you have to establish a science, then we have to
Yes.
be scientific about it.
Yes, it is all
So
planets.
those are my two questions.
Yes, sir. So 2 points. Yes, sir. Thank you so much for raising these 2 points. Point one. Kali Yuga is an astronomical event. Happens in the sky. And it's valid to everybody on Earth. Kali Yuga is not valid to Earth alone. Even if you're on Mercury or Mars or Saturn or Jupiter, Kali Yuga happens there.
So what is it?
So that's what. So there's a solar system is constantly going around. There's a different speeds. All of them. So at one point of time, it's observed that they all come in some alignment.
And in alignment with the zodiac. See, they will occur many times in alignment. Recently also we had, I think last year we had some major planets aligning. But alignment with Aries, that is the mark of the start of the Kali Yuga. And so that is not so frequent. And that has been dated. And that is what actually all our astronomers, all the Aryabhatta and all those people, when they write about the Kali Yuga, it's on the basis of that particular, that's how they have dated the 3102. So
that is why in all our zodiac calculation, we start with Aries. Because somewhere you can start in Pisces, you can start anywhere. Why do you start with Aries? Why is it in strings also it's still Aries? I mean in Lakshya also it's still Aries. It is because of this only across civilizations it's Aries. Otherwise in your 12 zodiac, you can start anywhere in the 12. Because of this, and going back.
So it is more than a physical, I mean, it's a cosmic event, but you're very specific the way you worded your question. Is it in the Mahabharata, is it corresponding to a specific event, historic event? No. I mean, the date of 3102? No, not specifically. The period maps to the Kali Yuga period, but not one particular event, and there is no mention that Krishna passed away, I mean, departed on exact Kali Yuga day.
There's no mention of
And
that.
talking about why people have started associating.
Okay, so yes, so I think that is point is very clear. That there is no specific physical incident.
Yes.
But Kali Yuga is identified as a certain constellation of planets, right? So this is something which should be verifiable from
And it has been
astronomical
verified.
data.
Everybody verified. All the astronomy people who work in astronomy, they usually.
I can mention one thing. Wonderful arguments, and I would agree with some of the things you're saying. But this alignment of all the planets happened 5,000 years ago. There is no evidence for that. You can, I mean, it is very the planet, the speeds, etc., can be calculated very easily by even undergraduates now. And there are many situations in which 2 or 3 planets align. As you said, even in this year, there were 3 planets which were aligned in the sky.
Yes.
And but with the moon. Now you're talking of Neptune, Pluto, of course, Uranus, those things were not known in that time. But even the inner planets and up to Saturn, alignment of them, it can easily be found out whether they were aligned at the same time.
There are
which Aries.
sky maps show it. Sky maps show the alignment.
So we'll show you so we'll answer the question both
I'm sorry if I am, putting everything to a test and not relying on faith, but that's my job.
No,
So please don't mind if, we are testing everything as we go
We
along.
also don't go by faith. We also actually came to this only by testing. It's just that there are so many and we have to.
We have that, so we have an answer to those questions, Sri and to you. Just that we are getting a slide out. See, look at this. So Dr. Raichoudhury, see, this is the alignment of the inner planets as per the planetary software, whichever it may be. So that's one inner planets. So where Venus is, Mercury is, and that Mars. Okay, Earth is the other side. Outer planets. Saturn, of course, Neptune and Uranus is not coming to the discussion. Saturn and Jupiter. This next point. The composite view of both.
Mars should also be there.
Yes, Mars is there. Mars is the Mars. So look at it. So it is not that As shown in the picture, one straight pencil line. No, that's not so. This is the actual thing. So, but this is alignment close enough. That's what I say. So, where people show the one pencil earth is that everything is one straight pencil line of 0 degree. That's reality.
That's
It's
just
not
for
so.
the common man's understanding to
at a
show that
Quranic
it's an
level.
alignment.
This is the actual
And we
astronomical.
have the sky maps actually, they are
See, this
all
is-
plotted in our books. We have the sky chart.
Go
You
back.
put it even now, if we have some time, I can pull up stellarium and show you how. If I put 3102, I can show you all the planets which are in the same thing aligning together.
Go back one side for Dr. Rai Chaudhary. See, so outer planets, show that please. Outer planets, see that's where it is. Saturn, Jupiter, and inner planet. This is so, and the composite views available, and so it's so easy understanding. So that data is available. Now getting on to answering your other points, sir. Krishna's birth, his departure, the events of Mahabharata war, Kurukshetra war, all those things, Jayadratha, death or Ghatotkacha, all that are historical events. And this is an astronomical event. These historical events happen in the antare of the astronomical events. To say that, and Krishna says a multiple at the time of Jarasandha's passing away, later 2 times he says about Kali. So it's and it's in the 300-year period of window. That's what, and the word antare is very clearly there. It says more than 2 times the word antare comes in Mahabharata text per se.
So,
Okay, no problem. So the point of antare comes.
This conjunction is the 42 degrees.
Hmm.
Generally, a conjunction qualified is within 30 degrees.
It's wide. And the other point of 125 days, which is there in the book also, see when we say 125 years, Krishna lived is what multiple people speak. And we have the slides and the shloka for it, which will show it once it comes. The key point to be noted is, the verse says, "O Sri Krishna, you were born 125 years ago." It doesn't say, "Oh Sri Krishna, you lived for 125 years." That's the key point there. So everybody says, "Oh Krishna, you lived 125 years." Suppose we say this year, "Oh Sri Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose ji, you were born 125 years ago," which is celebrated 2 months back in the Central Vista. It doesn't mean he lived 125 years. So it only dates from Krishna's birth as to when the shloka was penned. That's what it gives us. Point 2. And Krishna's birth is the Srimukha year. So given this Kali Yuga, and this we can easily date Krishna's birth to 3112 BC, the Srimukha year.
see, this is another beautiful point that we can use to arrive at his birth. See, Shri Mukha year is one, if you look at even the most recent Shri Mukha year that has passed, it is where Jupiter and Saturn, see, fundamentally the Shri Mukha year comes from the 60-year Vajraspati Mana, the Jupiter Jovian cycle thing. And in that, the 60-year comes because fundamentally of Jupiter, Saturn, Earth angle. And the kind of angle which is there in the Shri Mukha year, if you start looking at all the Shri Mukha years, you will find that the Jupiter-Saturn angle is the same. And that kind of an angle comes only in 3112 BCE, which fits with the 3067 and the argument about not having 125 years lifespan.
If you want to say something. Okay.
So I think we have closed your time, Dr. Hari. So I would request you to give us a focused presentation or a concept note, because now we are trying to move into more specific territory. 3 questions. First question is about 3102. Now, whatever is the planetary astronomy related evidence, you mentioned, for instance, here everything being in conjunction. Then you showed a cone kind of a thing. Then you showed a cone kind of a thing. So whether it's a straight line or a cone, and how do you relate it to some planetarium software? Please give us that. Just that specific point.
Perfect.
Second point, you were saying that in the 18-year war, the astronomical events under some assumptions and hypotheses seem to be aligning. that when it was, full moon, when it was, moon rising at midnight. I'm sorry, I could not follow everything. आपको पूरा आ गया समझ में जो कह रहे थे?
We can have a second round.
So the internal consistency of the astronomical events, as stated in the Mahabharata, please give us that, that is important. And the third point is the other evidences which you are saying. So Sri Mukha evidence and the other evidence. That please give us. So, just, I know you have thousands of presentations and there's a wealth of information that you have collected. But for our purpose, if your presentation could, in fact, today it would have been helpful if you had come up with a presentation on just these three aspects. It would be easy for us to follow. But never mind. Can you give us that within a week or so that on the basis of that, then we can, get the scientists also to start working on.
Yeah.
So I think,
Can I just make one point?
do we have some time for question answer now or is the session over?
Can I ask?
Yeah, you can ask a question.
So can I just
What time does it end the session?
Actually,
Including the question hour time is ended.
Yes, yes.
So what is your next session now?
We are breaking for lunch and then
Lunch we can break a bit later also. No? When are we reconvening after lunch?
2 o'clock.
So we can take another 15-20 minutes, break for lunch at 1:30. Half an hour should be enough for lunch in any case. Isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Dr. Raj.
All the 9 planets are in alignment. Which text has given this? If there is, you can give any reference in the ancient literature, either Purana or Itikasa.
Yes, we will give that to you, sir. We'll certainly give
That
it.
is the only thing. As far as myself, I know, I have read Surya Siddhanta fully. Surya Siddhanta only gives that these all the 7 graha, they are in alignment at the end of Krita Yuga. And in Aryabhatiya and other texts, it doesn't give that. That is my observation because I have read all the astronomical texts. I just want a reference.
Yes, sir, we'll give that to you and to both of you also, sir.
We'll include that
Thank
in
you,
that.
sir.
Thank you, give that. I'll give that. Here, I'll take one more point, sir. When people say Krishna lives for 125 years, it's got a biological issue, apart from just archaeoastronomy, because if Krishna lived 125 years, that means he was about the age of 89 when the war took place. And all of them, including Yudhishthira and his Bhima, they're all elder to him by a couple of years. So it's actually a geriatric war then.
And Bhishma even older.
And Bhishma should be at 140s, 150s. And the uncle of that Pandu's brother, Dhritarashtra, should be in his 120s.
And Abhimanyu, actually, according to the thing, Abhimanyu is just, his wife is still carrying.
They're teen. So he cannot be in his 40s.
Krishna, Arjuna is in his 90s and
90s, so-
having a son Abhimanyu and in his
Who is
teens.
16? Who is 16, 17? So you can't have a 90-year-old having 16-year-old. So these are all biological issues actually. Means of reproduction, progeny issues. And after Krishna passes away at the age of 81, which is 36 years after the war, his parents soon, when they hear that he's passing, that means his parents will be 160 then. His parents will be 160, 170. So these are issues because we know that in Ayurveda, 60 plus 60 is Purnayus, which is what Sant Ramanuja lived. So you're right, people here living at 160, 170 years old. So that creates other issue of longevity only 5,100 years back. So putting Krishna at 120 years, another practical, as a medical doctor, he will know you can't have a whole host of 40, 50, 70 people living around the age of 120s, 130s, 140s, 150s. It is another, then
Not present day.
sir, 5,000 years back also. Sir. It's not very far. 5,000 years. Genes wise is not very far. It's not 50,000 years.
5,000 years, this may be possible.
So that's an issue of
Let me have a question.
yes, Haji sir.
Two questions. One is when Pandavas were going for Vanavasa, the day was the eclipse. And as well as just before the Mahabharata, another solar eclipse. But both are not visible in India in your pages. Second, all our tradition, the Yudhishthira was king when Saptarshis were in Magha. It does not mean that an astronomical observation. What happened in 2,700 year cycle? Every 100 years are assigned to one nakshatra. Why they did so to just to remember how many hundred of No. So the Saptarshis were in Magha only 3176 to 3076.
your 3067 goes beyond that. So that time Yudhishthira, Saptarshi was not Magha if you are going to 3067. So this is the what is another tradition. And second, third one is the Kali Yuga epoch cannot be the same in all Siddhantas. Because somebody following 100 years cycle, then his 100-year cycle ended 3076. This is the reason Kashmir follows Lokika Sambhat from 3076. Then they have shifted from Magha Shukla the calendar to Chaitra Shukla. First. Second, somebody is following 60-year cycle like Brahma Siddhanta. 3012 is not a Prabhava. Then how it is a Vijaya Bhidaya. So then this date does not fit into that Siddhanta. And another Siddhanta, they follow Prabhava when Jupiter is in Dhanishta. Some follow Jupiter. Then this is the reason this 60-year cycle have a numerous traditions. In Paitama, they start from the Aries. Jupiter has to be Aries for Prabhava. So this is the reason there are the minor differences. This is the reason some say when Sri Krishna died, that time was Prabhava. Even Aryabhata, Kali Yuga must start from Prabhava. Cannot be 3101, 3102 was not a Aryabhata's day. Why? Because it's clearly there when 60-year cycle ended. So that's why the band is same. But there are a difference of opinion about the beginning of Kali Yuga. That's why whenever we are reconciling, we have to reconcile every statement. Those are, may appear contradictory, but in different siddhantas they are talking about.
Yeah, but that also brings us to the final statement with which Secretary Sir ended. Should we reconcile and aim and shoot for a date, or shall we rest after so many millennia? Can we just rest and say that this is roughly the time window? So that is a big thing, because this is like boiling the ocean. We have said about 7,300 calendars. Now, which all are we going to go study? Which all tradition? After we do all this, also you may find one tradition which is again, not fitting with this. So long as we have an overall timeline and a time window, I think, and we celebrate Janmashtami on the same day, I think we're all good as a cultural institution.
I think Mr. Bapat is now really getting impatient.
The time is getting impatient.
But this is how you
Thank
zero
you.
down on the.
Yeah, so I think I am very clear that we don't need a mathematical precision. If there is, an overwhelming body of evidence which indicates that these events actually happened, they are not just a figment of any imagination, and they roughly happened in this time zone. Even I would say 500 years open, doesn't matter. That should be sufficient for us to, start the initial work.
Yes.
And as the work progresses, it can be honed down to more.
Absolutely.
So that is very clear. So thank you very much, Dr. Hari, Mr. Hari.
Thank you.
And let's proceed for lunch and then we'll come back.